First off, I'm not sure why you clicked on a video that blatantly says you're wrong in the title. Why bother engaging with someone like me? It's better to keep your sanity and walk away knowing your day remained the same. If you are still here, then let's find out if you have the same opinion as me. First, let's get some things straight. The most important thing to consider when rating a game is whether it's fun. When you look back to your childhood and think back to the games you had the most fun playing, it was most likely spent playing with others or trying to clear that one game level that you struggled with and feeling a sense of achievement when you finished it. That being said, as you grow older, maybe you find yourself being more critical as games have advanced. When we were children, no one really cared how great the graphics were on a game or even what FPS was, let alone how much the game had. But when games started advancing and getting more and more massive, we all started to learn what each of these things did and how it impacted us. The modern struggle with games has developed mainly due to greedy and lazy developers. That isn't to say all devs are like this, as you find some smaller, independent people who are just as passionate as their players who love making games. But it's not just the devs' fault, it also lies with us. It's hard to find a game where we can't complain about something, and often you will hear contrasting complaints like the map is too big or small. Now, with that being said, I like to rate games in a few categories to help you decide how picky you want to be before playing a game. First is fun factor. We don't care about the graphics, we don't care about the quality of life, FPS, lore, or anything other than is it fun? How do we define fun? Well, you can't. It's a vibe you get when you play the game. So, since we can't rate it, I'll use a fun scale based on the game this video is about. Assassins Creed Odyssey has a fun scale of 8 out of 10 Icaros feathers. When you play the introduction to the game, you are immediately thrown into the Battle of 300, which for a lot of us boys is an exciting moment in history, and a long slow motion movie, having everybody yell, "This is Sparta!" After that, it takes you on a stunning journey across the starting island featuring everyone's favorite bird, Icaros. Finally, focus in on your character, either Cassandra or Alexios, depending on your choice at the start. You get a quick introduction to the choices you make in the game, and if you're someone who is confident in their decisions, or someone who chooses to play based on a certain playstyle, such as evil or good, then these choices will make for some interesting outcomes in the game. Now, at this point, some of you may have already thought to themselves, oh, it's a copy of Witcher 3, or I hate dialogue choices in games. But there's no point in whining about that, it's in the game. There are some complaints players can make that devs can directly improve or implement with ease. The dialogue choice in this game cannot be changed as it's a foundation in the game. Not to mention the game is about 7 years old at this point. Overall, in the beginning of the game, you find yourself getting more familiar with the combat, engaging in short, easy missions, and finding rather annoying things popping up which can prove difficult for a new player, such as the mercenaries. After you leave the starting island, you get an introduction to naval combat, which as long as you are playing on a normal difficulty is relatively easy and relaxed. The naval combat is reminiscent of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which was one of the first Assassin's Creed games I truly enjoyed. Plus, in this game, cleaving ships in half is very fun. As you explore the Greek world and meet new people and get more quests, you may find yourself overwhelmed with content to explore. I usually prefer to select when quests pop up, and you can do that to a certain extent, but if you have the DLCs downloaded, they get auto-added to your quest log, which can be rather annoying. Something else that takes away from the fun factor is the bugs that are still in the game despite so many years since release. Now, I don't think bugs and glitches necessarily take away the fun factor in games, as some of them can be entertaining on their own, one example of such being the Skyrim giant bug, where when you get hit, you go flying through the air. However, there are some that are so annoying that you will have to restart the game. For me, that's an audio glitch that makes it so your character always seems like it's using an ability or it's on fire. It's extremely annoying, and that bug alone cost you an Icaros feather. Another aspect of the game that takes away its fun is the balance between the legendary items available or the various builds you can make in the game. As you get further along, and once you understand how to make a build, you can start stacking a lot of damage. Like a lot. This makes all content on easy a joke, and normal might as well be called journalist mode with these builds. Hard then becomes easy, and even on the highest difficulty, you are still one-shotting almost everything around you. Now, some of you may say that sounds like a lot of fun. Well, you're right. It's fun for a few hours, then it becomes a boring game. Now, most players will probably not go out of their way to create an OP build like this, and will play the game normally, as that's what I did the last few years. So, that's why this doesn't lower the score too much. The mercenary system in the game also offers a bit of excitement, as I'm the kind of player who never pays off his bounties and runs around with a 4-star mercenary ranking, just like when I was a kid playing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. It makes the game more fun. Now, this was largely due to arrogance on my part, and I was right majority of the time, but I still find myself mistiming a dodge or taking on a mercenary while low health from a previous fight. And when these guys kill me, I find myself hunting them down until I kill them. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Okay, I think that's enough talking about the fun category. Now let's move on to the second one, which is performance. This is the scope of the graphics, visual tweaks, FPS, and frame loss. How responsive the game is, and any other performative category you can think of. Assassin's Creed Odyssey was once used as the go-to benchmark for people on YouTube showing off a new PC build. It has a built-in benchmark right at the title screen, and is something I decided to do for fun to see how it runs. The game will obviously do better with higher-end graphics card and CPUs. I'm running this with a 3070 and a Ryzen 5 5600X. When looking at the numbers, they seem pretty decent. If we check out the FPS in the game, we see that we get around 70 FPS consistently. Visuals can be subjective, but for a game that came out in 2018, it looks rather amazing. Now, you may have some snobs thinking it doesn't even have 8K graphics, or looking at this video in 420p on my phone, it isn't that amazing. When uploading to YouTube, I can't give the game justice, and I'm also limited by my own technology. That being said, I feel most people aren't going to be running this game on such high settings, or perhaps you're playing it on a console, which locks in the graphics. Now, in the settings, you can select some modifiers based on how you want the game to perform. Do you prefer graphics or performance? And these work decently. Now, Ubisoft could probably have given us much greater control of the details in game, but part of the reason they likely don't give the player that much control is so someone doesn't purposely trash the graphics and upload it to YouTube. That being said, I'd rather have fine control over things, as I like to make it easier to run on my system when needed. The game is relatively responsive in combat, and there are rarely times when you feel the game doesn't respond right away. That being said, there are annoying bugs with one of the best skills in the game, chain assassination, where no matter how many times you press the button, the game is apparently out for lunch and can't be bothered with whether or not you kill that guy or are about to be discovered. Just like any game, it's possible to crash out or freeze up, which I think we were all hoping would be done with at this point in the gaming world, only to find the issues still cropping up today in newly released games. Also in the performance category, I'm going to put the bugs, which I have already mentioned a few. I feel like every player should be a little understanding in the fact that when you have a massive game with numerous small interactions and player choices, it's understandable that a few can get missed. These can be very small bugs that aren't a major inconvenience and shouldn't be a high demand to be fixed. Then there are bugs that need to be addressed immediately. I'm talking no more than 3 days, because if they aren't fixed, then I'll just drop the game until they are. Now, this grace period of understanding from the players usually only lasts within the first month or so of the game being out. Ideally, every major bug should be caught before release, and most of the minor ones. Sadly, reality doesn't work out that way. But if I'm playing your game almost a decade later and I'm still finding the same irritating bugs as when I first got the game, then that's on you. Wrapping up the performance section, I give this score based on impact to the game. If a game scores 0% impact, then it's a perfectly released game that runs great when using the recommended specs and average settings with no bugs. I don't think I will ever give a game a 0, but we can only dream. The worst score you can get will be 100%. This means the game is constantly dropping frames, visuals need major work, annoying bugs constantly cropping up, and it seems like most of the time is spent getting frustrated and restarting the game than playing it. With all that being said, Assassin's Creed Odyssey scores a 37% impact. It plays decently well, and visually it's still an amazing game, but the fact that some of these bugs are still in the game, you can still crash, and the lack of precise controls hurts it. Last category, other than our surprise bonus category that we'll get to later, is content. This takes a look at what the game has to offer. This is probably a large factor into what makes the game fun, but here we are going to look more in depth into what is driving the character, or us, the player. So, with that being said, the main story of the game focuses on Cassandra or Alexios, who is a mercenary who is either insanely greedy and occasionally does the right thing, or an all around friendly Misthios out to help any and everybody. Your character struggles to make it big and tries to make it out in the world when she, since I'm playing Cassandra, gets tangled into the Cult of Cosmos. The Cult of Cosmos storyline focuses on the impact they have in the Greek world as well as your family. You work to unveil the cultists, often by killing others or searching for clues. Once unveiled, you make a beeline towards them and kill them, collecting their fancy shards. After getting enough shards, you then go to Andros to upgrade your spear, which is needed for getting higher tier ability points. This is really fun at first, but then becomes very annoying later on, often with you searching up YouTube videos on how to find the cultist clue in Shipwreck Cove. It's over here, by the way. The decisions you make when killing the cult and searching for your family will affect the end of the game. I won't say exactly, as those who want to know will likely look up a guide, and those who don't can be pleasantly surprised by their choices. The second thing you do in the game revolves around side quests, some of which are needed in order to finish off the Cult of Cosmos. The side quests can be very amusing, frustrating, or extremely long and tedious. One such side quest involves hunting down legendary beasts. You get a decent set of armor out of it and a fear of pigs. There are many different side quests to do, and I find that I'm most willing to do them in the beginning, but ignore them for other things towards the end of the game. The third thing, which we mentioned earlier, is the mercenary system. This is actually a pretty good system which has various mercenaries hunting you and will constantly evolve with your player level. If you don't actively hunt them down, you will find yourself slowly climbing the ranks from defeating the red mercenaries that you find in the world. You are able to click on them to get details on who is hunting you, their strengths, and their weaknesses. As an added benefit, you will get various rank rewards as you progress, which are very valuable. Another side of the content is naval battles. If you're bored, you can go out to sea and sink every ship in sight. Most of the time, I try to run away as I don't want to waste time, I just want to get to the location I marked on the map. There's a smaller additional thing to do in the base game called contracts. These can be interacted with by going to almost any city and looking at the message board or going to the board on your ship. These are almost always the same thing and get repetitive quickly, but they can be stacked for decent XP and drachmae. Another activity that is key to completing certain quests or getting cultists is the conquest battles. In order to unlock these, you have to weaken an area by killing the ruling party's soldiers, breaking weapon racks, looting supplies, or killing leaders. Once an area is weak, you get to choose to partake in a conquest battle. Pick the side you want to support. You can choose the defending side, which is easier and gives you a smaller reward, or you can pick the attacking side, which is slightly more difficult and doubles the reward. The final activity you access in the main game is the arena. The arena is one of the best locations to get XP in terms of time it takes to complete, as long as you have a build that kills the enemies fast enough. The arena can be completed as soon as you near level 50 and isn't very exciting after the first time. The champions remain the exact same, and an occasional mercenary shows up, but the rate at which the enemies show up feels slow and as though you are standing around waiting for them. Now, on top of everything mentioned before, there's one final thing you can do in the game, which players have mixed opinions on. That is to hunt down the mythical beasts/monsters of the Minotaur, the Sphinx, Medusa, and the Cyclops. These fights are relatively fun, but each has its own way of making the fight easier. The boss mechanics aren't difficult to learn and usually don't take more than a few tries if you don't succeed in the beginning. The reason these fights can be controversial is because it leans into magical elements more than any Assassin's Creed game. Other players think, hey, it's a game where I control the memories of someone to search for weird ancient weapons anyway, and I can survive a 100-foot drop as long as there's a pile of hay at the bottom. Who cares if there's magical elements? I'm personally on this side of the argument, but I understand how frustrating it is for someone who wants a new Assassin's Creed game, but instead got a new RPG with Witcher elements and a splash of Assassin's Creed. Now, if you were to buy Assassin's Creed Odyssey without the DLC, you would be doing all of the things I previously mentioned. If you purchase the DLC, you gain access to Elysium, the Underworld, and Atlantis. This is considered the canon end to the game, so if you don't have it, you may be confused. Each of these areas offer unique legendary gear or upgrades to your skills, some of which are highly desirable, such as the Madness of Ares. You get a huge boost to leveling by going through the Atlantis DLC, making the climb from level 70 to 90 almost tolerable. Another DLC that was added to the game is the Legacy of the First Blade. This involves exploring the person who created the Hidden Blade and adding another kill list for you with the Order of the Ancients. Also, it's a short-term family simulator and romance game. This adds the ability to shoot fire from the front of your ship once you have completed the mission requiring it. The final bit of DLC is the Lost Tales of Greece. This involves some side missions, usually revolving around players you meet in the main story or past friends. Some of these are pretty entertaining, and others seem like they take forever to finish. Overall, the content in Assassin's Creed Odyssey is plentiful, and it would take you roughly 150 hours to complete all content. For those of you who love to play a game and want the game to overwhelm you with things to do, Assassin's Creed Odyssey offers that. However, that time is only included when purchasing the additional DLC. If you want to play for that long, that's the only option. If you just have the main game, then you are looking at roughly 60 hours depending on the difficulty you choose. Now, with the content rating, I don't really care whether or not it's fun, as we already covered that in the fun rating. I care about the amount and the diversity. Assassin's Creed Odyssey delivers that. Despite the repetitiveness of the type of content, overall I rank this an 8 out of 10. If there were more diversity, even when keeping the amount of content the same, it would get a higher score. And just in case people in the comments misunderstand what I mean by diversity, I just mean different things to do. Now, for our surprise bonus rating, this one is for Ubisoft. When I rate other games in the future, certain well-known game companies will likely have a bonus rating. Ubisoft is well known for making very large games with stunning visuals, but also for being a bit greedy. Assassin's Creed Odyssey showcases that well. If you go to the store, you can find various cosmetics to purchase, but Ubisoft chose not to make them strictly cosmetic, allowing you to purchase legendary weapons and outfits with their own abilities. One of the cheapest and deadliest things to purchase from the store is the Bighorn Bow, a seemingly weak blue rarity bow that only costs 200 Helix credits. This bow is bugged and it converts the weapon damage of the bow, putting it into your left hand. This can double your warrior damage when attacking with weapons, but the game also uses the damage when firing arrows, making your archery damage use the weapon damage instead. Now, if this were a weapon you can find in-game with this kind of bug, it likely would have gotten patched immediately. However, since it's something you purchase, it still remains in the game. Another benefit to using the store is buying whatever upgraded material you want with real cash. Just spend hundreds of dollars and save days of grinding. Boom. Fully upgraded ship, armor, and weapon. You can purchase map packs that mark the areas of important things in the game, such as the ancient tablets, ancient stele, and legendary treasure. Now, this isn't too big of a deal considering a Google search does the same thing, but for free. However, the ancient tablets, for whatever reason, don't get picked up by Icaros unless you are directly looking at it. Icaros usually has a grace zone for everything else in the game. It seems almost designed to guide you to purchase the map pack. On top of that, if you don't purchase the permanent XP boost, the leveling feels purposely clogged. Ubisoft seems to have sat in a board meeting and came up with a game that is visually stunning, fun concepts, and a good story, but they only wanted to give you enough incentive to crave more. Then they cook up the DLC and the store to give you the rest of the game. Now, Ubisoft isn't the only game studio that does this, they're just the focus of this segment in this video. As such, we are going to give them a rating based on Helix credits. 1 Helix credit is the worst gaming studio to ever exist, and 100 goes to the best. If we were to rate the Ubisoft of the Black Flag era of their games, they may have gotten a 50 out of me, but where it stands as of making the video today, I'll give them a generous 10 Helix credits. Now, if you managed to stick with me until now, I am genuinely impressed. The reason I made this video was hopefully to shed some perspective on a game I genuinely like, but find myself irritated over how it was put into practice. The concept of this game has potential to be some people's favorite. If it was called Odyssey rather than Assassin's Creed Odyssey and had been allowed to be fully explored to its potential, I think more people would find the game great. But that being said, the title does share the name Assassin's Creed, and there's no changing that. Combining the various ratings of the game, I give it an overall 7 out of 10. The game gets a barely passing grade for the fact that it is genuinely fun to play, especially for the first time, and it has enough content to keep you entertained. If Ubisoft truly worked on the game, fixed some bugs, and made the content more streamlined, it may even get a 9 out of 10. But I doubt the company will be doing that anytime soon. If you liked this video, please show it by clicking the like button. If you disagree or even disliked it, let me know in the comments below. What can I do to make these videos better, or what game do you think people have wrong opinions on? Let me know and I'll try to find out more about them.